What's going on? It's Dr. Ben again. I'm a chiropractor. This podcast and this series of conversations is really for the pre-chiro students, somebody who's out there considering this path. Maybe you're not sure. Maybe you know you want to go to chiropractic school, and we're just here to deepen your understanding of what you're in for if you do decide to become a chiropractor. So today, I have the honor of connecting with Dr. Monique Andrews, aka Dr. Mo. Dr. Mo, can you just kind of introduce yourself and give us some context of where you were at in life when you decided to become a chiropractor?
Yeah, sure. I'm Dr. Mo. I'm a chiropractor. I'm a neuroscientist. I'm a soul mentor. I've been teaching and speaking about chiropractic and the body mind continuum in the brain for I guess the last 20 years at this point. Um, People have very interesting stories about how they got into chiropractic. And I don't have a miracle story. I'm not a fourth generation chiropractor. I literally followed a girl to chiropractic school, and there's no mistakes in this world. So we're still together today. This is 20 years ago I graduated, and no, I never look back. What an incredible experience it's been to be part of chiropractic and the entire profession, and so much good to offer.
Amazing. So when you touch on mind-body continuum and also being a neuroscientist, can you kind of reflect back on what the sciences of chiropractic were when you were going through school and how they've kind of changed and evolved, or maybe not changed, but just been developed and grown over time?
Yeah, what a great way to start, Ben, because so much has happened in chiropractic science in the last 20 years. And when I first started, we had some good musculoskeletal research that was available that showed, yep, subluxation affects the nervous system, and this is how we address it through the spine. But a lot of the research at that time in the science was really focused on what was happening in the peripheral nervous system, and that when you adjusted the spine, you impacted the periphery. Now we know we have all this incredible research that shows us that when you adjust the spine, you're actually impacting the brain. And there's great neurophysiological research looking at EEG. We have PET scans, fMRI. We got genetic studies in animals now showing that when you adjust the spine, you are actually impacting the brain, and in particular, those areas that are responsible for human consciousness. So that's what I'm most excited about today when I think about the potential impact we have as chiropractors to literally elevate the consciousness of humanity.
And when you say that, it kind of touches me deeply, just because I went to chiropractic school not really ever having that as my intention of what I wanted to provide for people.
Yeah.
And as a chiropractic student, I heard that message that we shift consciousness and we help people see the world differently, but we also help people experience life differently. So can you kind of just touch deeper onto some of those studies that relate to human consciousness, or how do you build the bridge as a neuroscientist between consciousness, clinically speaking?
Yeah, it's really interesting. If you go back and look at some of the studies around consciousness, they did these great studies out at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, this guy, Richie Davidson. And they did these studies looking at monks. And what they wanted to find out was, where does compassion reside? And, there's been a lot of research looking in psychometrics and psychology, trying to figure out the brain and where these different things live, right? Like, is consciousness in the brain? And in fact, there's two different theories. One says that that consciousness resides in the brain and the brain creates it. And the other theory is that the brain is a conduit, that consciousness is in the field. The network people love this. Consciousness is in the field and the brain is really a conduit. Just like the eyes don't see, but they allow you to see. The ears don't hear, but they allow you to hear. The brain is not, consciousness doesn't exist there, but the brain allows you to experience it. And here's the cool part for chiropractors. It doesn't matter which theory is right. I don't know if we'll ever know. But the areas of the brain that are either responsible for where it lives or where it gets processed are the same areas of the brain that are impacted by the chiropractic adjustment. And so both the consciousness research and the chiropractic research mirror that. So that's no longer a question. We know that when we adjust the spine, these particular areas of the brain are impacted, like the prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, amygdala, all of these regions that really are literally responsible for this conscious experience that we have called our human existence, and
Mm,
literally are responsible for the richness that we call our life.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
I don't, I mean, it's great chiropractic helps back and neck pain, but
mhm,
wow, right? That's the
mhm.
exciting piece for me.
And
Yeah.
really reflecting on society and how meditation has grown in popularity, and we start to see our community really embracing meditation. There's meditation centers opening up everywhere in the last 10 years from my observation. Maybe it's because I'm a chiropractor. It's kind of that idea of when you buy a car, you start to see your car on the road everywhere. But I'm
Yeah.
starting to recognize how the level of consciousness is being elevated through meditation. And can you maybe just kind of touch on, because this is a pre-Chiro student that is maybe a meditation teacher right now. Can you kind
Yeah.
of touch on how becoming a chiropractor can really help you reach people, maybe through a different medium, the chiropractic adjustment, or just connecting with people in a different format, in a different setting? But can you kind of
Sure.
build that bridge between meditation and chiropractic?
Yeah, I mean, I think, what meditation is for the mind, chiropractic is for the body. We have that similar expansive possibility to create change within the human system. And one doesn't exist without the other. I mentioned mind body, it's really one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they did these cool studies and they look at the cortex, the thickness of cortex in meditators. So somebody that's 50 years old that's been meditating for at least 10 years, they will show like normally your cortical thickness, and your cortex is where we have conscious understanding. Your cortical thickness diminishes with age. In people that have been meditating for 10 years or longer for, a daily meditation practice, they actually show a cortical thickness that's equivalent to that of a 25-year-old. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't have the studies yet showing that similar kind of impact with chiropractic, if it exists or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I would be willing to bet a lot of money that it does. And I think there's such a perfect marriage in how we look at what meditations allows us to do, and being able to adapt, right, to changes in our affect, our emotion, in our thoughts, and to help sort of control that stream of consciousness. I
Mm-hmm.
think if chiropractic can do anything to elevate that, they come together beautifully. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
a perfect marriage.
So one thing I know about you is you were a teacher for a while, as a science teacher in chiropractic school. Can you reflect on the population of students, and kind of the consciousness of the students that were going through school, and maybe what you just observed of the types of backgrounds? Were there a lot of science oriented students, or were they maybe students that came for other reasons? Can you maybe just give us a little reflection on the demographics you saw?
Yeah, I think that it's the demographic was incredibly diverse, and not, the entrance requirements have changed now, so you don't need to have like a whole, undergraduate degree in science or whatever. You do need to have some prereqs, and there's quite a bit of science in the first year, especially in chiropractic college. So that can be challenging for
Mm-hmm.
someone that hasn't studied before. But certainly there are, many, many people that enter into chiropractic necessarily that don't have a science background.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of diversity of backgrounds, that's there. I think it's still a fairly, not diverse racially yet, and I would love to see that change. But,
Mm-hmm.
there's a good ratio of men to women. It's close.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I think in terms of background or area of study, it's really broad.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would just choose a school. If you don't have a science background, I would choose a school that has supports in place to help you navigate a program that's going to be more heavy in science than perhaps you've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a great segue, because you touched on a couple things. One is that they changed the entrance requirements so that you could actually enter chiropractic school with very little to no science background whatsoever. You could have studied dance. So not dance is actually very science oriented, but you could study art history and go to chiropractic school as long as you had your bachelor's. So what are some of the struggles that chiropractic students have with the sciences, and do you have any recommendations? I know that you offer potentially a mentorship or a support system that you're creating or have developed. Can you kind of just kind of touch on some of the things
Sure.
that you've put in place to support students with, but also what you see students struggling with?
Yeah, I think as a new student, that's a non-science student entering in, that can be a little bit overwhelmed. And I think, probably half of the battle with learning science is having the confidence and feeling like you don't have the confidence to learn it. And what I can say is that anybody can, and there are many different ways to learn. Like, not everybody is a visual learner, so reading a book's not going to be ideal. Well, there are programs now where you can get some of these really heavy science books, like even Guyton's textbook of medical physiology, which we use in chiropractic colleges, on Audible, not on Audible, but there's another program that has it, like, the science texts, so that you could listen to it, find other ways to learn. And so one great place to start out is figuring out, what kind of learner am I? And there's actually a test you can take online to figure out, am I a visual, auditory, kinesthetic? How do I learn? And then, hang out with smart people. And what I would say is, read at least an hour every day. Oftentimes what happens when students get in school, the first few weeks, they're just getting comfortable. And then all of a sudden you're into exams and you're cramming. And that's not the way to learn. And in fact, what research shows how we learn is by repeated exposure. So frequent repeated exposure, and committing to reading an hour every day, and hanging out with some very smart people who, maybe are the science nerds that you can, like, it's not going to happen through osmosis, but you will learn through them, because they'll tell you the tricks that they learned to study science, when they did it in undergrad or what have you. But there's a way. It's going to require a little bit more intense effort initially, but there are ways to do it. And then, I would say, as a new chiropractic student going to school, seek out resources and commit to reading at least an hour a day, not self-help, but, Kendall and Schwartz.
Can I have you, before you talk about what you're developing, can I have you kind of just maybe touch on some resources that can familiarize them with some of the terminology, specifically within the realm of the sciences, just getting familiar with science material as
Oh gosh, there's amazing resources now online. If you go and you search like science tutor, there's Khan Academy, and there's all kinds of stuff, free stuff. And I know that the younger generations, Gen Z and even Gen Y, they love watching videos. And if you're a visual learner or auditory learner, those can be great. There's a ton of stuff on YouTube. One of my favorites is Armando Hasudigan. And I would actually use Armando's videos in my classes sometimes, because they just do a great job explaining things. So I would get on YouTube literally as a place to start, and just start to, look at what is the deluge of information that's available in areas that you are unfamiliar with. Don't go buy Grey's Anatomies and start reading it. Start with YouTube or something like that. And there's great resources.
So the terms that I'm exposing them to are like epigenetics, or allostatic load and allostasis, salutogenesis, neuroplasticity. Do you have any other terms that you really recommend that people go deeper into, just to familiarize themselves, or maybe touch on some of those that I mentioned and how they relate to chiropractic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we talk about salutogenesis, we talk about neuroplasticity is big, getting into the neuroscience. Of course, I'm totally biased. Of course, I'm going to say, go and learn about the nervous system, because some of the hardest classes that students struggle with the most tend to be, central nervous system anatomy, muscle physiology, things like that. If there's any way you can get a leg up on those kinds of things. But, if you follow people, like if people follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you'll see I am always posting research and things like that. Every Monday I post my Mo Monday post, which usually is some statement about current science and chiropractic, and then some research to back it up. Things like that. People, that share those kinds of things will tell you what is sort of topical today, topics like neuroplasticity, like Dr. Ben mentioned. Yeah.
You just went fuzzy for a second. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I don't know why you were fuzzy while you were talking, and then I started talking, and you're not fuzzy anymore. Anyway, we can edit that out. So can you talk about the Prana Foundation, what called you to create that, and what the intention behind it is?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Ben. The Prana Foundation is really a community of resources and support for chiropractors and chiropractic students. And we created it because we really felt there was a gap for chiropractors as they were graduating and getting into practice. And from that, a lot of things happened. So I built my Dr.Monique's program, which is a science program for students and docs, and you can come learn about, the latest in chiropractic neuroscience there. But we do retreats. We have mentorship groups that are specifically focused on the sort of new graduating doc who wants to go and start in practice and needs to sort out what all the options are. And we sort of ease the path in that regard. We also do mentorship. We do advanced clinical mentorship. We have a few different groups that are all community based, because what we find is that when people come into community together in a really supportive, safe space, everybody learns. I'm still learning, even though we facilitate the conversations, I still learn and grow because I don't know everything. And when we come together, everybody has something to offer. And, when we see people like us and when we're exposed to diverse communities, what happens is we're always challenged to grow, to think in different ways. There's a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like, the surest way to evolve is if you want to grow, you need to read books and meet new people. And the surest way to change the person you are today from the person that you are in 1 year is to make sure that you're reading books and meeting new people. And I think that's what drives my personal passion, which is really to evolve chiropractic and evolve the profession into a place where everybody's communicating at the same level and we get the level of respect that we deserve. Yeah.
Do you mean everybody in regards to multiple chiropractors respecting each other, or are you speaking like with other professions that?
I mean, all professions, like we all have something to give. And as chiropractors, we tend to be, the bright lights in the room because that's the kind of attitude that we bring. Like we have this vitalistic, abundant way of thinking and being. And most other health professionals don't have that, And so this is something that's really unique. And I think the more we can share, and for me, I have 1 foot in the science and 1 foot in the philosophy. I do not think that they are opposed in any way. And I think the more that we can share on that level and speak a language that is universal, chiropractic is just going to keep growing. We don't have enough chiropractors on the planet yet.
Yeah, no, and that's a great segue. Where are you coming to us from right now? Are you in the US? Are you out of the country?
I'm currently in Victoria, BC in Canada.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Victoria. That's Vancouver Island?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful sunny day here. It's finally getting warm.
Can you kind of look at the last 20 years and reflect on the quality of life that you've been able to enjoy as a chiropractor, either as a teacher or somebody who's able to really go deeper and deeper and keep growing and learning over time?
Yeah. It's been, I will have graduated 20 years ago in June. And I've had such an incredible range of experience in my life because I graduated from chiropractic school and my wife and I went and started a practice from scratch, which we built into $1 million practice we had for 13 years. We then decided we want to go and help to shape the chiropractic future. So we decided to go. We both went and we were teaching and helping to drive a chiropractic school and the education for 6 years. We did that. And we left that 2 years ago now, and we've come back to Canada and we've created the Prana Foundation, which just continues to grow and expand. And it's just been this incredible ride. And now I have a lot more freedom than I had when I was in practice and when I was teaching. I can set my schedule. I can do what I want. And I can do that because I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what I can offer people. And that has afforded me the luxury and the privilege to be living the exact lifestyle that I want. Yeah, I would say that.
And that right there, to be honest with you, I could care. It's not that I don't care whether people go and become chiropractors after hearing conversations like this with you and I. As a pre-Chiro student, my goal is for you to just get clear on what your path is, whatever that looks like. And I really do like when people get focused, because I found the most joy that I've had is when I focus deep enough or close enough on something that I can go deeper with it. And I start to really realize the nuances and the subtle details. And so you kind of reflecting on the longer, bigger picture journey is amazing because you've been able to be a teacher. You've started a foundation now. Can you get deeper into the Prana Foundation? What are some of the activities that you've been able to offer students and chiropractors in recent years, and what does it look like as it moves forward?
Sure. Yeah. Something that I just want to touch on something that you said there about realizing who you are, whether you end up becoming a chiropractor or not. And so something that we say all the time in the foundation is that who you are as a person precedes who you are as a chiropractor. And that could be, that word chiropractor could be replaced with anything. Who you are as a person precedes everything. And so some of our highest principles are things like integrity and easing the path. And so everything that we do, in fact, every decision I make in my life, whether it is involved with the Prana Foundation or not, I ask myself a simple question whenever I come to a crossroads. Does this ease the path or does it not? Does it ease the path or not? And so we've literally built the foundation around easing the path for chiropractors and chiropractic students. So whether it's our retreats in Costa Rica, we just have a big one in June that's filled with mostly students. We're doing a doctors only CE retreat in November. So this is going to be the first time we do CE in Costa Rica. This amazing location and people love those retreats. And then we have our mentoring programs. So we have sort of like I said, a new grad, new doc program that's really a 10-week program to help shepherd doctors into the profession. We have more advanced clinical programs where literally you come every 2 weeks and you go through difficult cases and go through all of the different facets of that, right from the diagnosis management, kind of understanding what's happening with the body to the educating the patients. And then I have my signature program, which is Dr.Monique, which is it's really a chiropractic science and communication program. So we break down latest research and then literally, how do I talk to my patients about it? Like, it's great that I can understand the science, but how can I use it to improve outcomes in my office and my practice and retention and even to scale your business? So lots going on. We're growing. We're only really about a year old. But it's been incredibly successful already. And we keep coming up with all these ideas. And we're soon going to have to start to bring on some more people to help us because it's just exponentially evolving and growing. And yeah, we're just having an incredible time. And we're so grateful for the people that continue to support us and the people that we get to serve.
No, that's beautiful. Can you touch on some of the things with that 10-week program for the new grads? What kinds of, you said communication is key. How do you really break the science down into something simple that people understand?
So we have a very specific program that we run them through that starts with literally discovering what their own personal values are. So understanding who they are as a person. And then we go through a whole series that's really designed to help them chart a path that is actionable, usable steps. So everything from, creating a vision board to understanding what their options are, whether it's an associate, an IC, scratch start, going through contracts, looking at branding and marketing, and the whole stuff. It's this super condensed, high impact. We meet for an hour every week and go through all of these different things. And then they work through exercises and, we do some one-on-one calls, and it's been phenomenal. And the students that have worked with us have just gone on to do great things and are, I think at the end of the day, what they want is to not feel alone and to actually have a plan that they can action that's going to get them to what their dream is. And that's what we do in transitions. That's what it's called.
Amazing. Yes. And just to touch on the pre-Chiro transition going into school, is that something that you believe could be really focused on, and maybe you could develop content and materials for in the future to really prepare somebody to get to school with some clarity of why they're going to school, or focus on what
maybe
to get to school?
I haven't thought about that. Maybe you should do that, Ben.
That's what we're working on. I mean, that's the goal here. And these conversations are really just trying to connect the dots and build bridges between the incoming student and you. So, and other resources, of course. And I have some resources I've developed. I'm curious about feedback on this. If somebody is trying to become a chiropractic scientist, how would you contextualize they should orient their education or orient themselves to chiropractic school? Do you think there's a different way they should approach it if they're not necessarily planning on going into clinical practice, but they know they want to maybe do research one day or they want to teach one day? Do you think that's a path that you would recommend, or not necessarily recommend, but how would you help somebody who's really interested in that path?
Somebody that maybe is like research driven, then maybe even already has like a master's degree or something like that, or wants to get into the research, I would look at a school that has a strong research lab. You know, some like if you're really driven to, I want to go and I want to do research in chiropractic, I never want to practice. Well, number one, you could do research in chiropractic and not be a chiropractor, or go to a school where you know they have a strong research element where you're going to be able to get access to labs and research funding and stuff like that. And otherwise, I would say I would recommend that you don't do that. I would recommend that you start out and you're just incredibly open, that you have a voracious appetite for learning, and that you're open yourself up to it, expose yourself to as many different things as possible. You know, especially for a young person in their 20s, let's say. Oftentimes you think what you want this, and then months, years later, you're not anywhere near that. I can tell you that when I graduated from chiropractic school, I had a very clear picture of what I thought my practice was going to look like. And literally 3 months later, when I opened it, it didn't look like that. And it was the best decision I ever made. So if you're going into an intensive program like chiropractic, I would say just be open and try to think about the process rather than an ideal picture of the end in mind, because I guarantee you it's probably going to look different than what you think it will when you start.
It was really interesting for me to hear that you talked about how you don't let your foot off of the philosophy, even though you really are playing hard on the sciences. And I'm curious, if students are going to a really science-heavy school that maybe lacks chiropractic or the presence of the philosophy, how can we kind of, because things are continuing to change, obviously, with chiropractic education, and you talked about the future of the profession. How can we build a profession that supports students at no matter what school they go to gain exposure to the philosophy, while still recognizing that the sciences are important and not throwing out the sciences and vice versa, you know?
I think if you go to a school that's really, you know, on the more science realm, and, you know, we have a few that are really philosophically based schools, and there's a greater preponderance of schools that are more evidence-based or science-based. And, you know, no school is perfect. They all have their little quirks. Most schools will have, even if they're like one of the more heavy science schools, they will have a sort of maybe even underground philosophy group. Seek them out. You know, you can seek out organizations as well, like the IFCO or even the ICA, that has, you know, some philosophy associated with them, and find a good mentor. I think we need a mentor in life, whatever we're doing, whether it's chiropractic or I don't know what. I think good mentors really do ease our path, and can sometimes give insight that your peers can't. You know, you sometimes need the advice of a wise elder, and we're out there. We're out there.
Yes, you're out there in abundance. Every time I reach out to a chiropractor, they're more than happy to come on here and share their experience, share any insights they can with the prospective student audience, because and that's been my experience too. There's so many chiropractors that are passionate about chiropractic and want to give back, and this is a great conduit or vehicle to do that. So yeah, I want to thank you for sharing. Is there anything that you would help a student differentiate chiropractic from physical therapy or a medical pathway? Is there anything that you would say to that student that's maybe in high school or even junior high, to build context on what this profession is really all about?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that a lot of people think that chiropractic is an alternative to medicine, or it's an alternative to physical therapy. And actually, we only consider something when an alternative when the intention is the same. And chiropractic, it has a very unique intention, right? We correct subluxations of the spine so that we remove any interference to the body's innate intelligence to self-regulate, to self-heal, is self-maintain. And so we have this unique identity within chiropractic, and it sometimes gets confused on the outside. But the bottom line is, I don't think another profession exists that has this level of professional notoriety, that really is focused on elevating who we are as human beings. That's really unique. And I remember when I was first looking at going to chiropractic school, and I was a research scientist, and so my wife and I at the same time were like, how can we learn about chiropractic? Because we decided to look at chiropractic. We hadn't even been to a chiropractor. So we went, this is 21 years ago or 25 years ago before we started school. And we went and we looked in the yellow pages. Back then the internet was new. I know, I'm old. Anyway, and we looked up 20 chiropractors, and she took 10 and I took 10. And we literally went and we interviewed them. And we asked them what their life was like, what their job was like. And so then we came back with our data. And I'm like, what did we say? What did you learn? And I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? There's all these other things that were different techniques, even different lifestyle. I said, the number one thing that was consistent across them all, they loved what they did. And they were all seemed to be really happy people. I'm like, this chiropractic thing looks good to me. I mean, at the end of the day, if you love what you do, well, number one, you're going to be happy. But if you love what you do and you're happy, what else is there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And what do you think about the lack of representation on chiropractic just to high school students and college students? And do you think it's important that we really position the profession and not rebrand it, but brand it properly so that students are given an accurate understanding or context, so that when they sign up to go to chiropractic school, they know what they're getting themselves into?
Yeah.
It's a very expensive education. And I just think that, reflecting back on my path, I chose chiropractic in like my last semester of college, and I had 6 months to prepare for it. And I did work in an office, and I made all the right decisions. I worked in the right office, and I went to seminars with that doc, but that's not the typical. And
this is what I would say. If I was looking and thinking about going to chiropractic school, I don't know how we're ever going to all get on the same page in terms, I probably surgeons aren't all on the same page either. I think if I was looking at chiropractic schools and I was trying to decide where to go to, I wouldn't choose based on location, which a lot of people do. I would visit some different schools. I would talk to the students, not just the ones that are giving you the tour, but other students. And if you can, talk to some faculty, and just to get a feel. And, if you are an intuitive person and you listen to how, not just what your mind thinks, but what you feel in your body, you'll know when you're in the right place. Yeah. And you can always reach out to people like me, I'm sure, Dr. Ben, and say, hey, this is my background. This is what I'm into. What school do you think? And I'm open to having those conversations.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Quick last question. What are some of the best resources in the science journals? Like, what are some of the best journals to direct students to if they're on a college campus and they have access to these journals?
Yeah.
Are any specific ones?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Journal of Vertebral Subluxation Research. It's very chirocentric, JVSR, or Journal of Vertebral Subluxation Research, and also the Australian Spinal Research Foundation. And they both have websites and they have a ton of information. And those are two incredible resources that also have really, really cheap student memberships that give you access that is amazing.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. I'm really trying to stretch and squeeze the juice out of this conversation as much as I can here. Cool. If there's anything else, I'm sure we can have a follow-up discussion about it. But I appreciate your time, appreciate your energy and all that you're doing for the students. And I'm so happy to connect students with you, because it's so important that we really show the resources that are available and be clear about that. So
yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Ben. If anybody's watching, if you're not following me on Instagram, I'm always posting a ton of really great science and cool stuff. So give us a follow there, and you'll see what I'm up to.
Awesome. Okay. Do you have any questions for me before we get off?
No, I'm excited. I think this is a great resource, and I hope that more and more people that are considering chiropractic get access.
They will.
Yeah.
This is
great.
Cool. Thank you.